Welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm here with our resident expert to unpack a really fascinating intersection of things today. We're looking at ancient biblical narrative, what you might call authentic creative ministry, and get this modern AI-generated music.
Yeah, it's quite the combination. I'm thrilled to be here to dig into this with you. It's not every day you see those three elements in the same room.
Right. It's wild. So for everyone listening, our sources today are pretty unique. We've got the lyrics, the technical AI settings, and the actual private composer notes behind a song called Flee the Shadow by Craig Marvin Young.
The composer notes are like the real gold mine here. They show exactly how he built this.
They totally are. So, okay, let's unpack this. How do you take a story about literally running away, fleeing, and turn it into this like high-energy, modern synth-pop anthem of absolute power?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the technical choices tell a story all on their own. Like, before we even look at the lyrics, we have to talk about the sound.
Yeah, let's start there. Because usually if you're thinking about a song about fleeing or, running away, it usually sounds frantic, right?
Exactly, yeah. Frantic or fearful.
Like a chase scene. It's like the soundtrack of a horror movie where the victim is just running blindly through the woods, terrified. Or maybe it's this sad, defeated ballad where someone just gave up and is walking away in the rain.
Right, because fleeing usually implies weakness, it implies cowardice, or a total loss of agency. You're the prey.
But this track, Flee the Shadow, does not sound like that at all. Craig used Suno V5, which is an AI music generator, and he locked in the prompt for a modern synth-pop track at exactly 120 beats per minute.
Which is, 120 BPM is a very specific, deliberate choice.
It's club tempo. It's aggressive.
It is, and that's exactly the phrase Craig uses in his notes. He talks about this concept of aggressive integrity.
Aggressive integrity. I love that phrase so much.
It's brilliant, right? The creative challenge he had was making a biblical narrative about running away feel powerful rather than weak. He deliberately frames the act of fleeing not as a panning response, but as a rhythmic, decisive choice.
Like, you aren't running because you're scared. You're moving fast to enforce your own boundaries.
Exactly. The 120 BPM synth-pop style makes it feel like forward momentum. You're taking control of the environment.
Okay, so we know how the song sounds. It's driving. It's got this aggressive pace. But why are we running? Like, what's the actual story behind the beat?
Yeah, so to answer that, we have to transition from the modern AI beats back to the ancient text that inspired it all.
Right, the biblical foundation. He used Genesis 39, specifically verses 7 through 12.
The story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife.
Yeah, and for anyone who needs a quick refresher, Joseph is basically cornered. He's facing intense, relentless temptation from his boss's wife, and she physically grabs his garment. And in this split-second, decisive moment, Joseph he leaves the garment behind and sprints out of the house.
He literally abandons his clothes to get away.
Right. And the composer's notes mention this specific theological framework called type and shadow. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure, yeah. So in theology, Joseph isn't just viewed as a neat historical figure here. He acts as a type of Christ.
Meaning he's like a symbol.
Exactly. A type is like a historical blueprint. It represents someone who resists temptation perfectly. He's the ideal model of maintaining integrity under extreme pressure.
Got it. And that brings us to the shadow part of the framework, which is obviously where the song gets its title, Flee the Shadow.
Right. According to Craig's notes, the shadow represents the lingering pull of temptation itself.
It looks inviting, but it's empty.
Exactly. A shadow can look huge and terrifying or incredibly alluring, but it completely lacks substance. It has no actual mass.
Okay, I want to push back on this slightly, or we'll just ask a question about it.
Go for it.
So what does this all mean in practice? If a shadow literally has no substance, but it can't physically touch you or hurt you, so why does taking action against it require such, aggressive integrity? Why do you have to physically sacrifice something to escape an illusion?
That is the perfect question, and it pivots us directly to the physical sacrifice required to escape. Because the shadow itself might not have mass, but surrendering to it has very real consequences.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And that tension is anchored in the song's central lyric.
Yes. Let's talk about the lyrics, because there's this core line in the track that just hits so hard. Better to lose the coat than to lose the soul.
Such a powerful distillation of the Genesis story.
When I heard that line, my brain instantly went to biology. Like, have you ever seen a lizard drop its tail to escape a predator?
Oh, autotomy. Yeah.
Right. The lizard is pinned down, and in a fraction of a second, it makes this brutal, calculated choice to literally detach a piece of its own body. It leaves the tail behind as a decoy so it can survive.
It's a calculated necessary loss.
Exactly. It's necessary for ultimate survival. If I keep the tail, I die.
Yeah.
If I lose the tail, I live.
And if we apply that to the song, that deeply analyzes what Craig calls the cost of discipleship.
The idea that saving yourself costs something real.
Right. Saving your spiritual core, your soul, your integrity, means you sometimes have to willingly lose something physical or external in that exact moment.
The cope?
The coat. And for you, the listener, the coat might not be a literal piece of clothing like it was for Joseph.
It could be your reputation.
Exactly. Reputation, social status, maybe even financial comfort if you're in a compromising job situation. It's whatever external armor the shadow is using to hold you in place.
Better to lose the coat than to lose the soul. You drop the tail to survive.
You do. But dropping the coat only gets you free in that immediate second. Which brings up the next problem. Where do you run to?
Right, because if you're just running blindly, you're still reacting to the shadow. You need an actual route.
You need architecture for the escape.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting. The notes introduce this concept of the exit in the maze.
That's such a vivid metaphor.
It really is. And it's drawn directly from another biblical source that Craig used for the AI prompt, 1 Corinthians 10.33.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the theology behind the maze is so important for the listener to understand.
Because temptation feels like a maze.
Right? It feels like cognitive tunneling. You hit a dead end, and your brain tells you that you're completely trapped, that your situation is uniquely impossible and you have to compromise.
The walls just shoot up around you.
Exactly. But the song, drawing on 1 Corinthians, emphasizes that God always provides the out. He provides the exit. The maze is never actually a closed system.
There's always a door.
Always.
Yeah.
But, and this is the crucial catch from the composer's notes, the exit is always there, but you have to be willing to take it fast.
You can't just hang out by the door.
No, there's no time to linger in the maze. You can't stand halfway out the door trying to negotiate with the shadow.
Which brings us right back to the 120 beats per minute.
Exactly.
It's all connected. The music has to be fast because the required human behavior has to be fast.
The tempo of immediate action.
Right. So we've moved from the mechanics of the escape dropping the coat, finding the exit in the maze, to this idea of aggressive action. But let's talk about how the listener is meant to feel once they've actually navigated this.
The emotional payoff of the song.
Yeah. What is the emotional goal here? Because it starts with this intense, undeniable tension of a crisis moment.
It doesn't pretend the crisis is easy. Losing the coat hurts. But the synthesis of this track, the reason it moves from tension, that driving synth-pop beat, is to capture the profound relief that follows.
The relief of getting out.
The relief and the wholeness that washes over you when you finally choose spiritual boundaries over compromise.
Because if you keep the coat, you feel fragmented.
Right.
You compromise and you lose a piece of your integrity.
But if you practice aggressive integrity, you might be exhausted, you might have lost some social standing, but internally, you are whole.
That is such a powerful message for anyone listening right now. Like, we are framing this entire deep dive around you, the listener, if you are currently standing at a crossroads.
Staring down a shadow.
Yes, staring down a shadow. This song bridges AI-generated music and authentic creative ministry to serve as a literal personal anthem for making hard, decisive choices.
It's an auditory reminder of your own agency.
Absolutely. So, just to briefly recap this incredible journey we've been on, we started with a 120 BPM synth-pop beat that reframed running away into an act of power.
We looked at Genesis 39 and Joseph resisting the hollow illusion of the shadow.
We felt the weight of losing a literal or metaphorical coat to save a soul. And finally, we found the fast exit in the maze promised in 1 Corinthians.
It's a brilliant fusion of ancient text and modern AI capability.
It really is. And before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Think about it. If temptation is ultimately just a shadow that lacks real substance, what physical coats, what pieces of your status, your pride, or your reputation are you currently holding on to that are keeping you trapped in the maze?
What are you afraid to drop?
Exactly. What coat do you need to leave behind to find your wholeness? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep seeking out the exits, and we will catch you next time.